Recording is on.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to another edition of the Geeky Bros podcast. I'm your boy Tactix.
This is your boy Darcy. We getting ready for this one.
And this is Big Geek Umar. How y'all doing?
You're still trying to figure out a tagline, aren't you?
you know, it's more fun if I can't figure it out, right?
I see the gears turning. He's like, "What am I going to say this week?"
you know what it is? So the gears turn, but the gears turn very late because it's like, I gotta talk.
Oh man, hilarious! Sorry, Umar, I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel like you were going to do a tagline too.
No tagline. I was just going to say, like, I'm going to keep saying how y'all doing. And, like, if every week you guys are just like, who are you talking to? I think that'll just be the running gag.
True. Yeah. You missed it this time. My bad.
That's cool. I didn't mind skipping over that, to be honest.
Cool. All right, Umar, run us through the schedule for the week.
All right. So I kind of want to talk about something that's been making a lot of headlines in the geeky news or new nerd news community. The movie Old Guard. You've both seen it, right?
Yes.
No, I'm totally kidding. I've seen it.
Okay. So, spoilers for anyone watching from this point on. We going to talk about Old Guard.
Well, that's really early into the game. It's like, when they say like spoilers, turn it off at this point. It's like, oh, that's too soon. We lost them.
I'm like, just yeah. So let's talk about that, and then we're going to be talking about like certain anime movies and anime shows later on. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's a discussion I've been waiting to have. So let's dive in. So since all of us have watched The Old Guard, Tactix, what did you think?
You know what? I really, really enjoyed it. And part of the reason I think I enjoyed it so much is because, we don't have a whole lot of movies, like new movies coming out due to this COVID situation. So it's like, You know what I mean? It's like, now that all these like Netflix original movies are coming out, like Extraction was one, which was awesome. I fucking love that movie. And then Old Guard, I saw the trailer and I was like, oh man, this looks interesting. Now, had it come out in the movie theaters with the influx of all these other movies that we were supposed to get, like Fast and the Furious, although I know, Umar, you're not that big of a fan of that franchise.
I hate Tyrese.
Well, yeah, I think everyone hates Tyrese now, unfortunately. But
why?
Well, we can get into that at another time. But like,
Sorry,
I don't want to go there. Let's just move on.
But yeah, I think had it been released in the movie theaters with like and had gone up against all those other heavy hitters, like I think were we supposed to get like Thor and all that like this?
No, we were supposed to get Black Widow.
Black Widow. Okay, yeah. So that's another movie. So had the Old Guard come out around the time like this time in movie theaters and Wonder Woman, I don't think it would have stacked up well enough in comparison, right? But because it's all we have, I really enjoyed it, and that's why I gave it such a high rating. I believe I gave it an 8.
That's big for you.
Yeah, But like I said, like had it come out in movie theaters and and comparing it, kind of, you can't help but compare it to other movies. Like to stack it up against Black Widow, which I'm sure is going to be amazing whenever we get a chance to watch it. I don't know if I would have scored it quite as high because it did really feel like a Netflix movie versus like Extraction doesn't feel like a Netflix original in the sense that the quality was really, really it was really well done. And I could see Extraction doing really well in the movie theaters.
You're right.
Old Guard, I don't know. But that's not to take away from the movie. I really did enjoy it. And Charlize Theron is just a fucking badass. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, she just went from Fast and the Furious being the villain and being dope in that to then doing Atomic Blonde, and even Mad Max. Like, she's doing all these like action movies. And like, to sidetrack for a second here, I would love to see like an Expendables type movie, but all female cast. And have her be like the front runner of it, and then have like Linda Hamilton come back in that as something. Who else? Who else would be? That's a top. That might be a topic for another discussion, but we can
But I was actually
But I really loved The Old Guard. I like the storyline. I didn't mind. I know a lot of people have issues with exposition, but because I wasn't familiar with the comic book, I kind of appreciated it because it kind of gave me a better understanding of the lore and what they were trying to build. So I didn't mind it. I found myself thoroughly entertained throughout the entire movie, and then the way it ends kind of leaves me wanting more. I'm like, shit,
Yeah.
like how did that girl escape? Like she'd been like dying and coming back to life for like 500 years, and then now she's out and she's like gonna team up with that other guy, and I'm like, oh shit's about to go down. Charlize Theron is now like, she's got like one life left, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy. So yeah, I was hyped for this movie. I'm like, I want to see where it goes, and that's kind of my spiel. I'm done.
Yo, so I got to throw something in here. On the female Expendables movie, I gotta see. I don't know how to say her last name, but Gina Carano. Yeah. Like she's become a hardcore. I've become a hardcore fan of her now, especially after watching the behind the scenes. Yeah, Mandalorian, but the behind the scenes of the Mandalorian, the episode that she was in. Just like she's got an amazing soul, right? And like after seeing who she is as a personality, I'm like, oh my goodness, like she was just like the sweetest person, like way more than you would anticipate. But I totally want to see her because she's a badass, like through and through in real life and in the movies.
Yeah.
So I had to throw that out there. But in terms of the Old Guard, love the movie. I want to say that for me, it was like a 7.5, and I agree with Tactix in the perspective that if it had come out with all the other movies, we might not have noticed it. I feel like since it was on Netflix, it's kind of one of those things where even when all the big stuff's happening in the theaters, Netflix movies still kind of, if they're good enough, they get talked about because, you know, you spend money in the theater. Some people don't want to spend money in the theater, or you know, one day they go to the theater, watch a movie. Next day they're like, oh, you know, I want another good movie, and they go to Netflix and boom, oh well, let's just check that out, you know, and see if it stacks up.
Kind of like Bird Box. Like I haven't watched it, but like that was talked about.
Hard pass. It's shit.
Hard pass. But it's the factor of this, right? Like you go to the movies and you watch like let's say you watch a big action film, and then say Netflix around the same time releases another action film. You don't know if it's as good, but if you're hyped from the last film, you kind of want to watch another one that's new, and you click on it to find out, will it continue your hype? And hopefully it doesn't let you down. It's kind of like the thing that I feel like Netflix sometimes has going for it. But I think obviously it's boosted because, you know, there's nothing else to go see, right? Mm-hmm. So I liked it. I feel like in going kind of pigtailing, what the heck was that word? Whatever the piggybacking, there you go. I was like, no, that's not it. Yeah.
Where was your mind at, bro?
I don't know. I'm struggling. So so piggybacking off of what Taxi was saying, and I forget because of all that. I feel like a lot of Netflix films in the past have felt like some of them have felt like really high budget cable films, right? And now we're stepping into that level where it's like middle to low budget like movies, but like they've been solid or they've been completely like hard passed. Just Bird Box, hard pass. It had good ideas. It failed in the end. But
everyone watched that movie though.
Yeah.
Well, except for me.
Like I've said this before, it's a poor man's version of John Krasinski's the
Quiet Place.
Quiet Place, yeah, it's a poor man's version. But I overall, I'm so glad it set up for a second film because I felt like it almost didn't give me quite enough. But the hype for the second film is like, oh, okay, you're building up to it, and that the friend at the end who. When we were done seeing it, my woman was like, wait, how is she alive? And because everyone suspected that there's only like so many, like there's like a limit of how many deaths you can have, but nobody knows what the actual limit is. So perceivably, this woman who survived this entire time has way more deaths than everybody else because she's been dying consistently, probably like hundreds of times a day for how long she was in there. Now, people could assume she was in there the whole time, but she could have only been in there for like 50 years, and then somebody just was like diving for something and found her and picked her up, and she just played dead in that thing until they got her off into the ship, open up the thing, and then she's like, I'm alive. like and to take over, right? So anyways, these are my thoughts of the film. I liked it. 7.5 for me. That's about it.
Nice. Okay, so I also enjoyed it as well. I haven't read the comics. In fact, I'm waiting for my copy to come in at the comic book store so I can read it. I'm glad I watched the movie first rather than read the comic, and because I think we've talked about this. I've kind of I start to hate on certain movies a little too much if I've read beforehand, because then I start comparing it to the source material. If I watch it first and then I read, if I watch first and then read, then it's not as much of a strong disappointment. This one I enjoyed. I liked the story. I liked the acting. The action sequences were amazing. Like I'm with you on this Tactix. Like Charlize Theron is just killing it as an action hero, and I loved the how like the team just it was like a team of John Wicks going out and like taking care of stuff. So yeah, I would have to say that the action sequences were just phenomenal, and in terms of story, like just touching on what you said, Tactix, the exposition, I had a little problem with it. I wouldn't say I had a big problem with it, but I had a little of it. Frankly, I wanted the exposition just like you said. Like, I needed it. But the way it was done, and I mean, I can't think of a better way of doing it. So it's like Catch-22, but like the way they went about it just felt like they were just forcing the conversations to happen. I almost would have, I guess maybe I would have preferred just a pure flashback, but then that could have taken too much time, or that could have breaking the transition of the story. Anyway,
sorry, can I interject for 1 second?
Sure.
Hold your thought though, because I don't want you to forget it. But what would be a good example of a good exposition? Because I hear that a lot, especially coming from you, that like, oh, there's just too much exposition. And it's just like, like every time someone says it, I'm always like, what was wrong with it, man? I thought it was good.
Let me answer what was wrong with it first. So for me, the reason why this exposition bothered me was because when they're explaining to the new person, it's kind of like it's almost like they're talking about Charlize Theron like she's not there, but she's well within earshot, and also she felt what all of them are feeling, and they're kind of talking about her like she's not there. For example, if Charlize Theron was like giving telling the story herself, and then she like gets up and leaves after she's done talking, and then they add in being like, hey, look, she like blames herself and that sort of stuff, that would have made a little bit more sense. But like, I just found that this particular case, the way they did the exposition was kind of forced and awkward in a like a personal setting. If this was a comic book and I'm like reading someone talking about this, I probably wouldn't have noticed the staging as much. But since this is like a real world adaptation, I was able to see, and like, you know, people talking about each other like that, it's kind of a weird setting, but that could just be me. Yeah. A good example of exposition, I mean, Thanos.
Sorry, go on.
Thanos, I would say that when he would always give exposition, it was decent. It was good. Like he would talk about his planet. That was a short exposition, but like you could feel the way he did it. Also, when he was talking about how like Nebula tried to kill him in Infinity War and he captured her, like it was very short, but at the same time, like the way he kind of like talked about it. And also, it was very real also. And also how him and Gamora were talking back and forth in the throne room about how much she hated her childhood, and how he was like, nah, you say that, but like, you were like the fiercest person I've ever met, that sort of thing. Like, I would say that level of exposition and creating a bond, that worked.
So you like them short and sweet?
Short and sweet, or like at least realistically depicted. Because like with Thanos and Gamora, they were like, it was like parent and child arguing over abuse. When he's talking to Doctor Strange regarding his planet and like why he's doing what he's doing, that is him kind of like giving a realistic, like he's about to fight someone, but he's like, hey, I want you to understand, like, this is why I'm doing it. And the other one's like, I don't know, man, you're crazy. It's like, really? So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. If in the Old Guard, had they just done it a little bit, like they staged it in a less awkward setting, I wouldn't have had a much problem with it.
So one thing I want to throw out here, just for, because I was a person for many years who didn't understand what the concept of exposition was. I just want to define that for people. It's when, like, in the story, characters, or I don't know if it technically means also if you have like title cards that do the same thing, like the Star Wars, but when they tell you about something in the story instead of showing you that thing in the story, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, the difference between saying something about the past of a character instead of showing a flashback and just having you experience what it is. So I just wanted to define that. I like when what you were saying is like when a character monologues exposition, and that monologue is like, you know, meaningful and whatnot, like Thanos, right? Then it can be very powerful and it can feel natural given the right writing for a story, in that the character is explaining something, and it's usually explaining from pain or excitement or something about, like, to relate to another character, or to get them to understand them, because that's why they're telling that history. And that would happen in real life, and then that happens to be exposition for the audience. It happens to be explaining to the audience the past. But yeah, when people are explaining stuff about somebody who's in the room, I mean, like, it can sometimes be cool, like, oh, this person's such a badass, let me tell you why this person's a badass. And it ends up being a bunch of things to explain to the audience that you can't film and show them because you don't have time to do it.
But I like for me though, I like, so based on that definition, they did do flashbacks in the movie. And I guess for me, during that scene when they're explaining, like, for example, when they're talking about Charlize and she ends up leaving the room, it's because, like, I believed that she has a hard time talking about the past because she's lived such a long time and had to see so much shit in her lifetime that she's just sick and tired of having to explain it. And so these guys, they kind of explain it for her, but then they showed flashbacks. So it was like, okay, like for me, I don't know, personally, I didn't find it awkward. It made sense to me. Like, it's like, okay, she doesn't want to talk about it, so the guys are stepping in to explain what the situation is. Boom, flashback. And then we kind of get a visual representation of what it is that they're saying.
So the thing I feel like, and this may be what Umar is articulating or trying to articulate, or not, but I feel like some aspects of this film, and as we're talking about exposition, I feel like it might come from some of that, is some parts of the film feel kind of basic. Like, they're good, they're totally fine. Like, they're like, you know, fundamentally in making film completely fine, but it's like, I didn't get anything new or exciting from it. And I feel like some of that exposition and that history kind of piece is kind of like the way it's delivered. I feel like I've seen it so many times, so that part of the film is just kind of like, you know, just kind of coasting to that part. Whereas when you get to like the action sequences and a lot of other stuff, it's like it's incredible. Or certain parts of the flashbacks are great because of the content of the flashback. Like that other woman, I don't remember her name, that is her friend, and they sink and they sink her in well, I don't want to say what for I don't want to spoil too much for people, but they sink her in something.
Not spoil it. We already gave the warning.
So they sink her in the sea. That part, even though it's like exposition argument, it's like that was set up for something really cool, and visually it's very emotional to watch that, and you see a side of Charlize Theron's character that you know, like you haven't seen the movie yet. You see more emotion from her in that flashback than you've seen throughout the entire film. She's way more like even keel, but kind of like world is I don't care for the world anymore. Where I see her back then, and she's like passionate, and you're like, oh, like that's very, very beneficial. But yeah, some of the other stuff, I'm totally fine with what was done. I don't say like is wrong, but I also kind of would also appreciate if they said less and they showed it in emotion, right? So they give you a giant mystery that you wait for the second film. Obviously, they can't bore you with this mystery where like they're just not telling you anything, and then you're like, well, this movie makes no sense. But if they were to like try and like make one statement one time, and then every other time something even gets close to touching on it. You just see the emotion in it, the characters about stuff, and then you're like, okay, all right, like we're not ready to go there yet. Okay, I see it. Let us not approach that. And you feel that. That's kind of, I feel like that would have elevated the film just a little bit.
For me, like I really like when situations that require exposition, we get to feel, we get to see what is happening as opposed to just being fed it through dialogue. And I just felt that, particularly in the big chunk of exposition that they had, and also I felt that like now it also goes towards our character, Charlene's, like when they're like bringing in the new immortal, it kind of was like just like throwing information at them and then like moving on. But then again, like as we saw, at least that was consistent in her character. Because like at first I was like, well, that's a bad way of like starting off the story, and also like telling this person who they are. But then like that's like she literally kept that going throughout the movie. So I'm like, okay, you know what? That's just who she is. So I'm not harping too much on the movie for its exposition style. I will say that it is a little bit more than a nitpick, but still, like, I enjoyed the film. Like, I would give the film a 7 for myself, a 7 out of 10. But it's like a solid 7 out of 10 for me. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I would watch it again. And granted, I'll watch it for the fight sequences, but also, I just had a really good time while watching it, and it also has a great cast. So yeah, like I enjoyed that film, and I'm looking forward to the sequel.
Speaking of cast, I had no idea that one of the immortals was Jafar from Aladdin.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't pick up on that. I was like, I knew he looked familiar, but I was like, where have I seen him before? And then I kind of just disregarded it. And then I was watching John Campea, and he had the same reaction. He was like, where have I seen this guy before? And then his wife pointed out that, oh, it's Jafar from Aladdin. And I was like, oh, shit.
For me, I figured it out because like when the movie started, I'm like, all of them kind of looked somewhat familiar, but I'm like, maybe they've all like been in sci-fi movies with makeup on. But it wasn't until the epic declaration of love in like the SWAT car that he's kind of like this angry just disregard for these people making fun of his homosexual relationship. And I was like, and something just about the way he was kind of very like viscerally angry at being trivialized his love for his partner, that it reminded me of a scene of like the way he was looking at like Aladdin, or the way he was acting in Aladdin. And I'm like, wait, is that Jafar? And then like I was like, I think that's Jafar, and I had to pause the movie and just like to double check, and it was.
Nice.
Interesting.
There's one more point I wanted to drive, and I'm like, not nitpick on the exposition thing, but I was just thinking about it because I'm rewatching Avatar: Last Airbender. I know you guys are happy. And so I'm like, I'm in the second season right now, and I'm just thinking about Zuko. And I obviously this movie is in the show, and you don't have the same timing to do the same kinds of things. But you know, like the thing that's interesting about his character is like he has a big conflict with his father. In the very beginning, you just know that he's been like exiled. Yeah. And you don't know why he's exiled, and you can very quickly tell through the littlest of exposition of someone just basically identifying that his father doesn't love him or has a problem with him, right? It's the smallest amount of thing. It's just a very simple statement, and you're like, all right, that's exposition, and you don't get answers for as to why. And as the show progresses, you end up finding out that, you know, he stood up to his father. It was a misunderstanding, and then his father battles him, and then burns his face, and then it's like, and then it progresses from there in terms of his emotional depth. I almost feel like if I wanted to go back to this film and I wanted to fix some of the exposition, I would try to like quickly identify with the smallest amount of conversation something about her history, then just do things that hint at her emotional torment of something to her past, and then later on, midway through the film, before the climax, before some shift in her character, you then show the scene of her friend in the past, and then you just leave it at that point, and you'll just go like, oh, so you get like a hint of something. You don't know what's leading into it. They're foreshadowing it. They show you the flashback, and then you're like, oh, that's serious crap, because they didn't say anything. You're also not as ready for that information. When it hits, it'll be a little bit more emotional because you have less information to go into it, and then that kind of catapults into whatever shifts in her character they want to set up later for the end of the film.
I think so. With a TV show, I think they can. It's easier to get away with that just because there's time to flesh out that story. So you can kind of leave things open ended. Yeah. That leads to a buildup where you actually find out more about what happened in this case with Zuko and his father. With a movie like this, where they're like, I think, especially if like the studio execs got their hands on it and they're like, yo, we need to kind of put a little bit more exposition so people understand, because we only have a limited amount of time to tell a story, and we don't know if there's no guarantee that we're going to get a sequel from this. So we might as well put as much as we can. And that sometimes can backfire. So I understand what you guys are saying in terms of exposition, where sometimes it's well received and you're like, oh, I like being spoon fed this information because it gives me more to work with, versus, leaving things open ended and you're kind of like having to piece together the scenario yourself. Some people really appreciate that. And it adds that element of intrigue. So I think it's sometimes challenging, especially if you don't know if the franchise is going to be successful.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we should change the film, and like it should be changed. It's more of a statement of like, how would you if you would? Right? And that's really all I'm pointing out.
Like for me, I would say that this is kind of helps to segue to our next topic. The film was written by the author of the graphic novel. Yeah. So I would say that this was a very easy and hard mistake for him to avoid, where it's like, apparently they didn't change too much of the dialogue. So like, I can see him in a comic book, this would be really easy to kind of stage the way he did. And like, you're getting the information. So you're not really looking at the awkwardness of the staging situation. But I can see like the translation from page to screen, it didn't translate perfectly well, is what I'm saying. Like not it was translated badly, just it wasn't as smooth. Yeah. Which then leads to our next topic. So I haven't seen because you guys were talking about Netflix movies. I haven't seen the Netflix Death Note film. I have seen the anime, and I'm a big fan of the anime, but I haven't seen the Death Note film. Have you guys?
Okay, so I'm the opposite. I haven't seen the anime. I decided to go against my better judgment and the advice from all my anime friends and check out the movie first.
I've seen both.
And
I've seen both.
Bro, I put this out on my Instagram and I got blasted, bro. They were like, how dare you watch the movie before the anime? Are you fucking crazy? And I'm like, there was nothing else to watch. I was curious.
I disagree with your fans or your friends or whatever, because if there is a proper order to watch them, it is the movie before the anime. The movie is not going to add anything to your experience of the anime. Yeah. You need to watch it first. It is the only way that you're going to be able to enjoy it. But you need to talk first about what you like about the movie, because I can't.
That's a short list. Honestly, okay, so. The only good thing I can say is, from what I saw, I was like, okay, there's a good storyline in there somewhere, but
Jesus, they bastardized that movie, didn't they?
It's just not in the movie. It's the storyline. It's basically, it gave me enough to build my intrigue to watch the anime, because I'm like, okay,
well, at least there's that.
I'm happy about that. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, so I wasn't deterred from watching it. It was more so like, okay,
you're encouraged to watch.
Yeah, this was shit, but I like the idea. I like where they were trying to go with it. Let's see what the anime is talking about.
Okay, so I'm actually, I thought when you messaged to us, I thought you had said you actually liked the film, because you said you were intrigued to watch the anime. So I thought that meant like, oh, this is good. I want to see where it could go. Okay, I'm happy that you didn't like it. So
right. The only good thing I will say, sorry to cut you off, Darcy, is the Death Demon, William Dafoe. Yo,
I heard he did a good job.
Okay, the way he sounds and the way he looks, I thought was phenomenal.
So So this is where I was going to go. First thing about Death Note movie, okay? And I also had another friend who also watched the movie. He actually liked the movie, and I was like, something's wrong with you. But so Ryuk, the Shinigami, I said that right, Umar? Shinigami? Yeah. The Shinigami, played by William Dafoe, is the best thing about that film. And comparing it to the English adaptation of Death Note, which is actually the version I've seen, it's like almost nearly perfect. Like the voice is so ridiculously, I feel like close. Like I felt like William Dafoe was really good in his performance of Ryuk. I'm not saying Ryuk was used properly in the story. I'm just saying William Dafoe was the only actual good thing in the film, okay? Because his voice was just really good. And the animation of him was actually really fairly accurate, right? But at the end of that movie is fucking shit. Okay, first off, there is no like actual capturing of the real story. Like literally, the only things that they get right after we talk about Ryuk is a notebook falls to like school ground, is picked up by the student, and that actual opening scene looks actually like spot for spot like how the anime looks. Right. And then after that point, the whole movie's just fucking different. Like the story just makes no sense after that point. It just
that's it. That's all that's similar.
It's pretty much at that point, like one, I forget her name, Miss Amane or whatever, like her, the girl that's like infatuated with him is like there right out the gate, right? It's like his girlfriend, and she wants the Death Note, but she like doesn't know anything about it. He like basically gives it right away that he has a Death Note like immediately to like use it as a point to like get her as his girlfriend.
What? Oh, sorry.
He's like. It's also in the United States, right? Not in Japan, right? Umar, like I'm just loving that Umar's reaction. It is basically like a teen, like there's teen romance kind of built into the film. There's none of
who's from the two of them, the blonde and
yeah. Let me see. Like there, L is just like. He's just dumb in comparison to like what he actually does. Like he gets really emotional, like at certain points. Like the performance of the actor was actually at times good, but the majority of it was written so badly that he ended up making the character. He had to make the character really like pathetic. The whole like sugar candy thing that he had was, instead of it being like so L likes these like candies, right? And it's just like a quirk of his character. But in the movie, they make it like this whole thing where he explains about how the use of sugar helps his brain work, which would be the complete opposite, because it actually would knock you out, right? Like, and he goes out to explain this stuff. Like, it's just. There's so many missing things.
I remember in the anime, he did make a point, because like they were saying, like, how can you have so many sweets and not gain weight? He's like, well, I'm utilizing my brain at a much higher level than the average human, so I'm kind of burning through all of the.
He makes it more of an explanation, if I remember correctly, something to the effect that like it helps power his brain, not that his brain is so powerful that he's burning more calories. Like the opposite like argument. Like let me just like mention some amazing scenes that Umar will remember that are not in the film, because it's all of them. So the initial graduation scene, the scene between Light and the police detective's wife, that scene was like one of my favorite scenes. The like one on the highway was obviously not in there. The one where he goes to jail is not in there.
Oh, come on.
Tactix is like, I don't know what these are. Right?
He's loving my freak out side.
Yeah. Another I won't say what this, because Tactix has to see this, so we can't spoil. Right, yeah. But N never shows up in the film, which you would understand. The whole ending too. It's just like. The whole ending is like it's on like a Ferris wheel. Like it's just like it's so ridiculously not the same story. It pretty much just starts off with the notebook and the Shinigami's there, and he likes apples, and then that's the only things that are similar.
I was actually going to ask if they had the apple thing in there, but okay,
yeah, they had the apple thing.
Okay,
yeah, and his dad's a police detective. And then
Okay.
like it's just
I am hearing all of this. I have to say, it's almost a miracle tactics that you're actually interested in watching the anime. I am very much looking forward to when you watch the anime and realize just like what you're in for, because this movie sounds dumb.
oh, it is super not intelligent. It is. The characters are ridiculously dumb. Yeah, there's like a good, probably multiple. I've seen one. It's like it just like summarizes like everything that's wrong with it in comparison, and on YouTube, like a video, and I'll send you that, and that's all that's all you'll need to see. But like, what was I had thought? Oh yeah, so here the one of the reasons why the movie offended me so much is because so when I was stepping out of like what's the right word for this shonen animes, when I was stepping out and I was like, I'd only ever really seen Dragon Ball, and Naruto, right? And Naruto. And I can't remember which one to say. So when I was like, you know what, I keep hearing about how shonen is not a good representation of all anime, and some people give you that attitude.
Yeah, you can make an argument about that. Yeah.
So, some people will be like, oh, you're not really into anime if you all you watch is shonen, that stupid stuff. So at one point, I was like,
that need to calm down.
I know, but I was like, you know what? Let me try something. Like, let me expand my vocabulary, right? So I'm like, I kept hearing about Death Note, and ironically, I watched it in English, not because I particularly didn't want to watch Japanese. The version I downloaded or wherever I got it from, no, somebody had given it to me, and it was all in English. And I put it
English dubbed.
I put it on, and it was actually delivered so well in English that I actually thought it was an English anime. And I was like, oh, that was interesting. Maybe that's why everyone likes it so much in like North America. I didn't realize it. And I was like, why do they speak English in Japan? But whatever. So I just accepted it, and I loved it. and it was like the first one that like expanded my vocabulary, and then they just completely trashed it and made it like he's like an emo white kid who's just like, oh, I'm like kind of powerful, but like, how can I use this like to get this girl? And why is this? And this girl's like super psychotic, and she really wants to like kill and take it from me and all that kind of stuff, which is not at all what happens, because in like the anime, like here's like a contrast tactics that is not like a direct big spoiler in any way, but like in the movie, how many people does he kill?
The police officers. He kills the bully guy.
You'd say what, like 20 people?
Probably, yeah.
That's it?
So, Umar, hold up.
Sorry.
So, and he kills people that like he just at some point he just starts changing his rules and start killing like just random people who get in the way of his plan, right? In the anime, he has a god complex, and he sees himself as righting the world. So he only kills people who are criminals and have done wrong. So he's actually like an anti-hero. And his death count is like plus 300,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
so number difference alone tells you these aren't the same stories. Because like I get you can't do 300,000 in like an hour and a half, like without exposition to get it done, because it's just going to take some time. But very different story.
Like honestly, in the first episode, he probably killed 20 people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like basically like if it's written in the news report that you've like been accused of murder, or if you're on death row and that sort of stuff, you go in the notebook and you dead. So like he that's his learning how to do this stuff. So
he basically takes the whole world and controls it at a certain point in the anime, because they're all afraid of him because he can kill anybody anywhere in the world, and like any news, anything. And he's super smart. He does all these like super crazy plans and plan stuff in advance and does all these crazy things.
The cat and mouse like aspect of that series is what, like, because like I will say that I have watched shonen anime. I have watched more further down the anime a whole like isekai and all that sort of stuff, and I enjoy action. But this was, I think there was absolutely no action in this entire series, and it is among my favorite.
Yeah, it's funny. Like he'll be writing in the book, and they'll do the same thing. Like how you're running in anime with the grass and the whatever. They do the same thing when he writes in the book. Like it's like he's like, oh, and then the wind starts moving, and you're like, it's so ridiculous.
They had like epic music with him just writing in a book. Like his handwriting is like a sword swing.
Yeah, and then there's like light coming off of it and like electricity coming out of his eyes, kind of a deal. It's insane, but it actually works because they add intensity into something that normally would just be literally like tactics. Like it's not really exciting just to watch someone do that over and over again. So you have to like make it fun.
So this actually this helps to like transition into the next topic I want to have, which is have either of you ever experienced a translation from anime to live action, or has it always been bad?
What do you mean translation?
Like basically, for example, this was an example, an anime that turned into a live action film, or I don't think there's live action series yet for animes, but like for me, the ones that I remember was Death Note, one we're talking about, Bleach, which was a Netflix, I think, movie.
Yeah, Full Metal Alchemist, Netflix.
Full Metal Alchemist. Oh god, that Dragon Ball movie from like back in the day.
Oh, Dragon Ball Revolution.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I think there
Avatar: The Last Airbender. I just knew he was gonna be so mad. It happened though. Avatar: Airbender. There's another one that also I was gonna say, but then I thought of Avatar. Oh, what was it? After you said Dragon Ball, there was like another one that also came out. Oh, I remember Attack on Titan. They did like a live.
Oh yeah.
Never saw it, but yeah.
Tactix, have you ever watched Attack on Titan?
Not yet.
Yeah, no, the series.
No, not yet.
Oh, okay, cool.
he knew you meant the series. Like, yeah, have you watched the movie version? All I watch is movie adaptations. I just need the Cole's notes, okay? I just want to quick and over with.
Gee, if you've watched like only the live actions of all these, I would just start crying. I would just start crying right now.
I'm gonna do that just to spite you now, yo.
Oh, man.
I want to see a guy like there's YouTube channels like people like reacting to watching like anime. Like there's this one old guy I watch who watches like all of Naruto like years after we all seen it. So people are like, oh, can't wait to see this episode. I want to see a person who starts a YouTube channel. It's like all they watch is like movie adaptations of like comic books and like whatever, and like one disappointing movie after another.
Did any of you ever enjoy any of these live action ones?
So in terms of the live action, do they have to be specifically anime or?
Well, we can open it up for sure.
We're gonna need to open this conversation.
Yeah, you guys like listed all of them pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do books as well.
One that comes to mind for me, it's not a book, but it kind of ruined my childhood a little bit, is Super Mario Brothers.
Oh God, yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yo,
video games.
Nah, bro, you can't tell me that there's any redeemable qualities about that movie, man.
It was I view it as like a great bad movie that was fun.
It was fucking garbage, bro. Like it had nothing to do with Super Mario Brothers at all, man.
You know what though? I'm gonna go 50-50 on this. It is so bad that it bounces up and it becomes something else, right? It is in the same league as the movie The Room, where like that guy who did that.
Yeah. With what's his name? Oh God.
Yeah, it's in that.
I did not hit her. I did not.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry, T. I should have waited.
It's in that category. Like it makes like you're a child, right? And you're watching a movie and they put it up on screen and you're like, you can accept a lot of things. You can accept a lot of things being different. I watched it and I'm like, how are these? What what turtles are these? like I don't understand. Like, why do these look like cracked out? And then you watch the movies, like the YouTube videos when you're older, where they recap it and they talk about it. And it's like, oh, this literally is an acid trip. The director was on acid, and that's why we got what we got.
I also remember
that would be like Street Fighter. Like Street Fighter for me is like so bad that it's like good. Like I'm like, okay, I could turn my brain off for a couple hours and just.
I want to say Street Fighter is in a different category. There's like all these adaptations that are horrible. Then there's ones that are so horrible that they become cult film horrible. Like you want to watch them. And I feel like Street Fighter is in the middle. It's like a cult film horrible, but there's like almost redeeming qualities about it.
No, there's no.
I feel like Mortal Kombat would be more the
yes,
the
first Mortal Kombat was the only game translation to film that actually remotely worked.
Yeah,
Mario
and it was disappointing too. It was disappointing. Yeah. Like Scorpion, I was a big Scorpion fan. I was like, only thing I got out of that whole film was he said, "Get over here." That was about it. Like I was like, oh.
but he did take off his mask and try to burn someone.
Yeah, that was just. I
like the reptile fight.
Oh yeah, that was sick. But the music,
yeah. The ones that followed it were garbage. So the new one, I have hopes for. Also because Mehcad Brooks is in it, and I'm a big fan of his. The guy who played Jimmy Olsen in Supergirl, the Jimmy Olsen didn't make any sense.
Okay,
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
He's a big dude. He's playing Jax, and and on top of that, he gained like 30 to 50 pounds range for the character. Like he's like 6'6", and he like stacked on muscle. He's like looks like The Rock a little bit in it.
So would you guys say that like especially with anime, but also with games, that they should stop trying to do live action versions?
I don't want to say they should stop. Like Assassin's Creed almost was good, and then it wasn't. And I heard that there was an alternate cut that just never made it out for people to see that actually was slightly better. I feel like, how do I put this? I feel like if it's got a good story and lore that you can either build a franchise around of multiple films because the story requires it, but you can build a good solid first film out of it, or it has a succinct enough story that you can like take from it and just make a solid single film. But I feel like too much of it is like, here is something that's really popular. Let's just throw money and make a movie around it. But they're not really questioning if they can actually take that story and make something that's a movie that makes sense. Yeah. A lot of these should be series, right? Like you could make Death Note of all of the animes into a live action TV show. It is the most adaptable because everything that they do is practical. Like there's nothing other than like the writing and the wind flowing by, right? Like everything is real other than like Ryuk. Ryuk's the only thing you have to CG up or do an amazing like practical costume and combine the two. Everything else is like they drive in cars, they walk in buildings, they talk to people. Like it's just, there's nothing it's not like Attack on Titan where you need like some like 75-foot tall like skeleton looking like thing walking and eating people. Like it's totally easy to make. They just can't do it in an hour and a half because it's too much story to try to condense, or you have to take one thread of it and it will feel weak the whole way through. So
how about you, Tactix?
It's a good question. I think so for me personally, and I know this isn't like this is more of like a video game adaptation, but I found that the new Tomb Raider movie that they did recently a couple of years ago was actually pretty decent. Like I enjoyed it. I found myself really liking it. Yeah. I don't know how well it did in the box office, and they left it open-ended for a potential sequel, and I personally would like to see where that goes, and I thought it worked in comparison to the previous Tomb Raider films that we got with Angelina Jolie.
Felt more real.
Yeah, like it was a little bit more. It was more grounded in
But it's because they also adapted off of the new game.
Exactly.
It's like a visual, almost perfect adaptation. Though the thing is, I fell asleep watching it, and I even mean to go back and rewatch it. I'm not saying that it's because of the film. I think I was just tired. But
Okay.
On Netflix.
yeah, I know. I've been meaning to go watch it, but I keep worrying that I'm gonna fall asleep again. Like it is because of the movie, and I feel bad because I love her as an actor, and I'm like, I don't want it to be because of the movie.
She's fantastic.
Yeah. So
No, it's a solid film. It's a solid film, and although it was more of I felt like it was more geared towards either kids or if you were a fan of the video game itself. But Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't bad.
Oh, that was a really good one.
Yeah,
And
I've heard it's good.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed
no
that
expectations about it, but I went in and I was like, no, you know what? It gave me what I needed. It gave me what I expected. It's not a superb film, but I mean, based on nostalgia, I found myself enjoying it, and they got it. It felt authentic to me.
Yeah. It's also important that the director, when they released the first trailer, and everyone was like, "This is ass!" Like,
Yeah.
and then the director literally, like, public statement was like, "You're right. We're gonna fix it." And then they went back and fixed it, and then they released the movie. And you're like, that alone gave him so much credit for people going into the film that any imperfections at that point in the character, because there's still things that were different, but it was like, no, you did something that nobody does. Like studios would be like, no, we have our creative blah 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 blah. It's like, no, you made a mistake and you need to fix your mistake. And own your mistake. And once you own your mistake, we respect you for it. I think Sonic was really enjoyable. I think it was good for exactly what it was. I got all the notes of like Sonic things that like were fun for me. And I didn't really think about, nor do I really remember the TV show's story arc to any degree. Yeah. But I kind of also wasn't expecting any specific adaptation. Another one that was also really good, and I'm not a big fan of the lore, but I know some people that were, and they told me like, yeah, that was a really good film involving the lore. Was Pikachu, like the Pokemon detective movie?
Yeah, I saw it. It was definitely a kids movie. Like it was 100% a kids movie, but it wasn't bad. So like if I had a kid, then I would have enjoyed watching them watch it. But for me myself, like going there and watching it, I was like, meh.
Yeah. I actually remember though, when going back to Sonic, when it came out, there was articles that came out that had said, is this like the start of when it's technically the first most successful video game to movie adaptation that has ever happened. Like financially, it's the most successful and most critically acclaimed at the same time.
Yeah.
And it looked like the start of how to do it right. And
exactly.
And that is inspiring, because it's like you either have to do a couple of things. You either are trying to adapt a story to like as close as possible, either by taking the entirety of the story, if you could possibly do that, it had to be a short story, or you're taking some variation of the stories, like threads that hit a lot of the main things that you like, but doesn't do everything. Or you have to like do what Sonic did and go take the core of the character and core elements of the lore, but then just write something new. Right, yeah. Something that works within that time frame, which is honestly the better choice to do in most scenarios, unless what makes that character is the story, right? Like some things you can't just like step away. I mean, you can't take Death Note and then, because they already tried it, and write a completely different story and it worked, because it doesn't, because it's shit.
Yeah, like I would say that in terms of anime, they should stop trying to make live action transitions. It's not working, because there are like certain aspects of anime that work because it's an animated platform. It won't translate well in live action, nor could it. With games, I think they just need to figure out the formula. They haven't yet. They're just starting to with Sonic and also with Pikachu, and also apparently with Lara Croft. But at present, I think that that has the most potential. But animes should just stop making live actions.
Sorry, I got to argue against that for a second here, because games have, a lot of them, the ones that you want to adapt into a movie, have as much lore and have as much story as any anime, right? Like
that's not why I'm saying that it shouldn't be adapted.
Why?
I'm saying that, like, for example, in Full Metal Alchemist and Bleach, that I saw the translation for in live action, they were adapting the humor or the like kind of personalities to a perfect T than what happened in the animes. But like those only work in animes. If you meet people who interact that way in real life, like bang their head against the wall, like that's weird. So that's what I'm talking about.
That I would agree with. I think that it comes down to the right material. And I know I hate the Death Note movie. I honestly would have loved if they never did it, but two, if they had done a Death Note television series. And if they said we're only going to do one season, it's 12 episodes, and we're going to condense 24 episodes into 12 episodes or into like 10 episodes, maybe even 8, it would have worked because it could have. It's adaptable. The characters don't act crazy, that like how anime. I think it's just about checking the material and say, does this even work in real life? Assassin's Creed technically works in real life. It's perfectly fine for it. You just have to write the right story. So
yeah. So just before we end off, I just want to circle back. We kind of have gotten a couple of comments in our previous podcast that I just wanted to like bring them to attention. So from our 7th podcast, which had to do with the empathetic male leads, and we asking if anyone had any kind of examples of an empathetic hero, May or Maybot, she said Peter Parker.
Okay.
I gotta say, I kind of agree with that. I completely missed that character.
Mm-hmm.
He does have a lot of those elements, and I would say the only aspect he has is he's struggling his place in the world, but that's more he kind of gets over that.
He definitely has greatness thrust upon him, but he doesn't. He has a totally different reaction to it, especially like some of like if you read like the graphic novels and the comics and stuff like that. He definitely has like he doesn't want to, but not like he's like I don't know.
He feels like because he has the power, he should do something.
Yeah,
but that wasn't his first instinct. And like I agree, he does have greatness thrust upon him, but that's mostly because like he's choosing to be responsible as opposed to like having a destiny to fulfill.
Yeah.
T.
I agree.
I forget what kind of like is like a courtroom type thing or something like that, where it's like
Concur.
I agree.
Okay, and then for our last podcast, what had to do with Giancarlo Esposito casting in the MCU, Nudge commented, interesting. So he said for the MCU, he would have liked to see Mayor Kingpin for Giancarlo.
Interesting.
I agree. That would be
Mayor Kingpin.
Yeah. So in the current comics, he's currently mayor of New York.
That sounds terrifying.
He's let go of his Kingpin status and is.
I agree that he would do a great job. I cannot see it any better than what we got from
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, Vincent. Like I can't. He is perfect. He is.
Season 3 of Daredevil, he was perfect for me. Season 3 only. Season 1 and 2. Actually, season 2 he started becoming more the Kingpin. Season 1 I liked him. It's just that he was too much of like an emo Kingpin. But I realized he had to go through that to become the real one.
Yeah, I thought his acting was amazing. I mean, I didn't know Kingpin as much before, but I thought it was amazing. And the second that car scene went down where he took that guy's head, I was like, this guy was like eerily terrifying. I'm sorry. I think he's perfect every time he came on screen. That's all I'm going to say.
Tactix, any thoughts on the Kingpin aspect?
I agree.
I knew it was coming.
So Nudge also had another. So this is going to the DC now because he liked your Lex Luthor aspect. So he was saying his 2 suggestions are Old Man Bruce Wayne from Batman Beyond
for Giancarlo,
yeah.
Giancarlo, sorry, why Giancarlo?
And or Brainiac. He had a couple other ones, but these, I think the Brainiac and the Batman were his left field ones.
Tactix, what are your thoughts?
No for Old Man Bruce Wayne.
Interesting.
Yes for Brainiac.
I agree.
I agree too.
I agree. Yeah, I can't. Like, I'm all for changing up characters, ethnicity, stuff like that. But some characters I can't unsee a certain way, and I can't unsee Batman being white. I'm sorry, I just gotta be blunt about it. Like he always will be for me. Like the Bruce Wayne variation of him. Any other person, I'm totally game with, but I can't unsee that. And it's just No, that's a bad thing. It's just like it's just how I want to see it. Brainiac, 100% though, 100%. I could see.
What about Darkseid? That was also another suggestion Nudge made.
Interesting.
I just feel like his voice is wrong for it. Like he's got a great, ominous, powerful voice, but I always like that typical Darkseid voice that we get, and anytime someone changes it slightly, I get annoyed because it just doesn't feel the same.
Well, I would say that for me personally, Brainiac sounds more likely. Darkseid, I probably can't hear.
Yeah, it's just not quite right. He's good. It's just it would be like I would want him in something else the whole time. I would be like, oh, what, can you just get somebody else?
Well, I do want to thank Maybot and Nudge for your comments, and if you guys have any comments regarding did you guys like Old Guard? Also, have you guys seen Death Note, the anime or the live action movie? What are your thoughts?
Well, we will take away all the explicit types comments just for this one post because we know it's coming.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. This has been another edition of the Geeky Bros podcast. I'm your boy Tactix.
It's your boy Darcy. Death Note on Netflix sucks.
And this is Big Geek Umar. Live long and prosper, y'all. Like and subscribe, please.